Hey there. Tonight, we're not visiting kings or following armies. We're stepping into a quieter place. One that smells of smoke, sweat, and iron. A place where no one came by choice, but everyone came eventually. This isn't a story about glory. It's about pain, and the hands that learned to carry it. Because before there were dentists, there were men with pliers. Men who worked by candlelight, pulling teeth in back rooms and bloody barns, praying they could yank fast enough before the screaming woke the neighbors. So if stories like this help you unwind, or give your mind somewhere strange and sleepy to wander, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it truly speaks to you. And let me know in the comments, where are you listening from, and what time is it for you right now? It's always a comfort, knowing where in the world these quiet stories find a home. Now dim the lights. Let your jaw unclench. And come sit beside a boy with an apron stained in red and rust. In a world where nothing was clean, and everything hurt. But someone still had to help. Close your eyes. And listen. The stench hits before memory does. It clings to the walls, to the straw-stuffed bedding, to your mother's apron. A thick sourness of sweat, smoke, damp wool, and mouths. Especially mouths. You were born in that smell, one room, mud floor, leaky thatch roof, and a family that thinks toothaches are simply a test from God. No one brushes their teeth. No one knows how. No one cares. Bad breath is as common as fleas, and you, unfortunately, are born with a nose too keen to ignore it. Your cradle isn't a cradle, just a wooden box lined with old rags and fur. You teethe on crusts of black bread, chew on boiled roots, or a leather strap soaked in ale. When you scream, your mother doesn't coo. She mutters a prayer and dips the strap again. Pain builds character, they say. Teeth rot before they fall out. That's just how it is. By age 5, you've already seen an old shepherd spit a molar into his stew and keep chewing. Your grandmother keeps her pulled teeth in a small leather pouch, calls it her charm against death. Your father has 6 teeth total. The front ones. The rest? Gone, broken, or swallowed. When he smiles, if he smiles, it looks like someone knocked the stones loose from a garden wall. And no one thinks that's strange. But you do. You notice things. You wince at the sight of blackened gums. You flinch at the way everyone smells like cheese left too long in the sun. You try not to breathe through your nose, but you do. It's your curse. Or maybe your calling. The turning point comes when you're 7. A man from the next village shows up at the blacksmith's hut, howling like he's been stabbed. He's holding his jaw, sobbing, begging. The blacksmith, a man with arms like tree trunks and a face blackened by coal dust, leads him to a stool and fetches his horse tongs. Not for horses today. You stand there, frozen in the doorway, watching. The man screams so loud the birds flee the roof. Blood sprays. The blacksmith grunts and yanks. Something white hits the dirt. And then the man thanks him. You ask questions. Too many. So they give you the rag. Mop the floor, boy. Wipe the bench. And somehow, just like that, you're part of it. No ceremony. No training. Just the sudden weight of knowing this is what you'll do. The others call you strange. You're the child who isn't afraid of blood. The one who watches instead of weeping. The one who knows not to touch a used tool until it's passed through fire, if it's passed through fire at all. And so, without knowing it, you become the apprentice. Not to a doctor. There are no doctors here. But to pain itself. Your toys become twisted iron hooks. Your education is measured in screams. You learn fast. How to boil water, rarely used. How to hold someone down without getting kicked in the groin. How to bite back nausea when you smell rot so thick it stings your eyes. There's no white coat. No gloves. Just a blood-splattered apron and a strange pride in not flinching when someone thrashes. It becomes your life. You grow up in a world where no one speaks of teeth unless they're cursed. Where no one expects to keep all their molars. Where people die not from battle or famine, but from abscesses that swell until they choke on their own rot. Toothache isn't a nuisance here. It's a death sentence with bad timing. People gnaw bones, drink vinegar, chew on twigs, and pray. Always pray. Because there's no medicine. Just myths and superstition in people like you, small boys with steady hands and stomachs hardened by the sight of blood on straw. By 10, you know which teeth are ready to fall and which will snap halfway through the pull. You recognize the sound of a dying nerve. You learn to look into someone's mouth and read their whole story, what they eat, how they sleep, how long they've been hiding the pain. By 12, you've got your own tools. Not new ones. Nothing is new. They're hand-me-downs, dulled by time, blood-etched, iron instruments passed from one generation of scream-catchers to the next. Each tool has a history. And a stain. You're too young to be good at this. But you're the only one doing it. And so, the village comes. With wails, with swollen cheeks, with jaws clenched shut in terror. And you, still a boy, open their mouths and pull their pain out, one root at a time. You're 7 the day you see it happen. A man, one of the mill workers, stumbles into the village square clutching his face, moaning through a mouthful of red. He collapses by the smithy, and the blacksmith, without ceremony, grabs his iron tongs, the ones meant for horseshoes, and gets to work. No prayer. No comfort. Just steel to rot. You watch, frozen, as the man howls loud enough to rattle crows from the trees. And when the tooth finally comes out, cracked, blackened, thick with pus, the man doesn't curse or strike or run. He thanks the smith with tears in his eyes. You don't flinch. You don't cry. You ask why the tooth was green. That's when the blacksmith squints at you, snorts, and hands you a bucket and a stained rag. Since you're so curious, he says, you clean. And just like that, you're apprenticed. Not to the village doctor, there isn't one, but to the closest thing they have, the man with the strongest grip and the most iron. There's no ceremony. No vow. No name carved into parchment. Just blood on your sleeves and the smell of rot in your nose. Your family doesn't question it. They're proud. After all, not every boy gets chosen. Not every boy can stomach it. Your training is not formal. There's no book to read, no theory to learn. You're taught through pain. Through sweat. Through repetition. And above all, through silence. The blacksmith doesn't explain things. He shows them. He throws a jawbone on the table and asks which tooth is rotten. He heats the tongs in the forge until they're just warm enough to sear the skin. He lets you watch as he yanks another molar from a screaming neighbor, lets you count the cracks in the enamel. "You see this?" he says, holding up a tooth with roots long as a crow's claw. "That's a story. Pain tells you everything. Learn to listen." At night, you dream of teeth. Piles of them. Some cracked, some perfect, some whispering. You wake with your jaw clenched and the taste of iron on your tongue. By 10, you know which teeth come out easy and which snap like old branches. You know how to hold a head steady, how to wrap a man's arm so he doesn't break your nose when panic sets in. You learn to brace your knee against a chest, to twist and pull in a single motion, and to ignore the sound it makes when a tooth breaks loose. You learn not to hesitate. Because hesitation makes people scream louder. Your hands grow calloused. Your eyes grow cold. You don't look away anymore. You don't gag at the smell. You begin to recognize the signs before they say a word, the tight jaw, the trembling hand, the way they avoid your eyes. You know which ones will cry, which will faint, and which will try to run. And you learn to stop them. Because running doesn't save teeth. It only spreads infection. At first, you think you're getting used to it. That your stomach is tougher, your heart harder. But then a child comes in. Barely 6. Her cheeks swollen, her cries weak. Her mother holding her like a broken doll. She can't speak. Just whimpers. Your master nods, motions you forward. You freeze. "She's just a girl," you whisper. "She's still got teeth, don't she?" So you kneel. You reach. And when you pull, when you hear the wet pop and see the blood, something inside you twists. Not because you're sorry. But because you're proud. Because you did it right. That night, you don't sleep. You sit alone, staring at the tooth. It's small. White. Almost perfect, except for the black line at the base. You put it in a box. Your first. A trophy. You'll collect many more. Soon, people start to talk. Not with affection. With fear. They call you the boy who doesn't blink. The one who doesn't flinch. They stop calling you by name. You're just the tooth lad now. And when someone comes to your master, clutching their face, begging for relief, he doesn't look up from his forge. He just jerks a thumb at you. Your first solo extraction is a woman 3 times your size. Her jaw's so swollen she can't speak, but the look in her eyes is pleading. Her husband holds her still. Her tears soak your sleeve. You whisper a prayer. Not because you believe, but because it calms her. You twist. She screams. Blood sprays. And when it's done, she hugs you. You don't feel comfort. You feel use. You are not a boy. Not anymore. You are a tool. And in your world, tools do not weep. They cut. They clean. They pull. And they learn, over time, that pain is not the enemy. It's the proof that you're alive. You don't remember the first time someone bit you. There have been too many since. Incisors clamping down in blind panic. Molars grinding your knuckles like bone mills. But that first bite, it teaches you something you'll never forget. Fear sharpens the jaw. You start wearing gloves. Thick leather, stitched from goat hide and softened with grease. They're too big for your fingers, but they give you just enough time to pull back when a patient thrashes. You learn to see it coming, the twitch in the cheek, the flinch in the eyes, the way their hands curl into fists even before you touch them. You develop instincts. Useful ones. Because by now, you're not just an apprentice. You're becoming something darker. Something necessary. The village doesn't love you, it needs you. And there's a difference. You smell it before you see it. The rot. It's always there. Clinging to their breath, their clothes, their skin. A sour blend of old blood, moldy bread, and something deeper, something that smells like secrets left too long in the dark. They sit in your chair, and you don't see people anymore. You see mouths. Broken battlefields of enamel and decay. Teeth leaning like crooked gravestones. Gums split and bleeding. Cavities so deep you can hide a fingertip inside. You've learned to look past their eyes, to study their jaws. Are the lips dry? Is the jaw swollen? Are the gums glossy or cracked? Can they open without wincing? Each answer maps the work ahead. Your mentor tells you that a good dentist listens more to breath than to words. Pain speaks through gasps, not sentences. And so you listen. You lean close. You sniff. You gauge. Then you decide. The tools haven't changed. There are still only a few. The pliers. The tooth key. The hook. The spoon. All rusted. All ancient. All stained. You try to clean them now. Not out of habit, out of respect. For the pain. Because you've begun to understand something strange. Something no one ever says aloud. Suffering has a kind of rhythm. A tempo. Every scream follows a beat. You've memorized them. The sharp inhale. The wet rattle of breath. The moment of silence before the cry. And then the crescendo, high, piercing, full of helpless rage. Like a bell struck too hard. You don't flinch anymore. You work through it. Your hands steady. Your brow furrowed. The pressure behind your eyes dull and familiar. People ask if it bothers you. It doesn't. What bothers you is silence. The long, heavy quiet that comes after the extraction. When they slump forward, too tired to thank you. When their blood still drips, but their voice is gone. That silence, it stays with you. You try to explain it once, to a girl your age who brings you soup after a long day. She asks what it's like, pulling teeth. You try to tell her about the sound. The smell. The way blood can steam when it hits iron on a cold day. She doesn't finish the soup. She doesn't come back. You stop explaining after that. Better to be feared than misunderstood. The children call you names now. Tooth breaker. Mouth butcher. Blood breath. You don't mind. They run when they see you. But when their fathers moan in the night, clutching their jaws, you're the first name whispered. And when their mothers wake with cheeks swollen like overripe fruit, you're the one who knocks on the door before dawn. You start keeping trophies. Not out of vanity. Out of memory. Each tooth tells a story. This one from the widow who wept through the whole procedure but refused to let go of your hand. That one from the drunk who tried to punch you mid-yank and passed out instead. Another from the nobleman whose breath smelled of honey and disease. You line them up on your shelf. They whisper to you when the night gets quiet. Sometimes, they scream. But most of the time, they just sit. Like soldiers. Fallen. Silent. Remembered. Your master begins to slow. His hands shake when he lifts the pliers. His breath wheezes in the cold. He watches you work now, nodding, correcting less and less. One day, he pulls you aside. Don't forget, he rasps. We don't fix. We remove. You nod. But you don't believe it. Because you've started to dream of something more. Not just pain. Not just blood. Not just yanking and packing and praying the rot doesn't spread. You dream of healing. Of stopping the screams before they start. Of understanding why teeth die. You start to ask questions again. Dangerous ones. What causes the pain? Why do some rot faster than others? Why does the breath sour before the tooth blackens? He shrugs. It's just the way of things. But you're not satisfied. You start to observe more closely. You make notes. You compare. You listen. You begin to suspect something heretical. That it's not demons. Not curses. Not divine punishment. It's food. It's filth. It's time. Rot, you realize, is not fate. It's a process. And maybe, just maybe, it can be slowed. You don't say this aloud. You're not stupid. But the thought lodges in your mind like a splinter. You look at your tools differently now. Not just as instruments of pain, but as instruments of change. And for the first time since you picked up the rag, since you mopped blood from the smithy floor, you feel something strange. Hope. Not much. Just a flicker. But enough. Enough to keep going. Enough to dream. That maybe one day, people won't scream when they see you. They'll smile. With teeth. It begins, as all rot does, with something small. A strange spot on the tongue. A little pain when you chew. A flicker of soreness in the gums. No one notices. Not even you. You're too busy. The patients come in waves now, winter always brings them. The cold makes old pain resurface. Teeth that held on through summer give way beneath the frost. You see it every year. But this year is different. This year, the mouths fight back. Not in anger. In silence. There's a shepherd boy with a lump under his tongue. It pulses, faintly, with every heartbeat. When you lance it, pus sprays the wall in a sharp burst. His mother screams. You don't flinch. You clean the wound. Pack it with moldy bread. Pray it's not too late. He dies 2 nights later. You chalk it up to weakness. To winter. To bad luck. But it happens again. A miller's daughter arrives with a swollen cheek. Her jaw stiff, eyes dull with fever. You pull the tooth easily. Too easily. It crumbles like burnt wood. The next morning, she's gone cold. 2 more follow. A merchant. A weaver's apprentice. They all come in too late. Or maybe, you think, you see them too late. You begin to notice something new. A smell. Different from the usual rot. Sweeter. Thicker. Like spoiled fruit left in a closed room. It lingers after they leave. It clings to your tools, your gloves, your skin. You wash with vinegar. You burn herbs. It doesn't matter. The smell stays. You stop sleeping. Your dreams are filled with teeth, not whole, but shattered. Tiny fragments floating in blood, spinning like stars in a night sky that never ends. You wake gasping. Your hands ache now, not just from work. From tension. From fear. You try to hide it. You smile at your patience. You sharpen your hooks. You light candles with steady fingers. But something in you has cracked. One night, you visit your mentor. He's older now. Slower. His fingers tremble when he opens the door. He smells like wine and old parchment. He sees your face and frowns. You've been working too much. You nod. Then you speak. There's something wrong. He listens. Quietly. Then sighs. It's always wrong. That's the job. You shake your head. No. Not like this. It's worse. It's spreading. He pours 2 cups. Doesn't look at you. We're not priests. We pull. We clean. We bury. That's our work. You stare into the fire. But what if it doesn't stop? He doesn't answer. Just drinks. You leave before dawn. The streets are silent. Your breath fogs in the moonlight. And still, the smell follows. A week later, it reaches your door. A woman arrives, swaying, face half shadowed by a hood. She doesn't speak. When she lifts her veil, you see it. The abscess runs from her molar down to her neck, swollen, dark, gleaming. She's burning. You can feel it from across the room. You know the look. You've seen it before. But this time, it's different. Because she's smiling. Not out of joy. Out of relief. She knows what's coming. She lies back without protest. You grip the pliers. You hesitate. Then, slowly, you set them down. Instead, you take her hand. I'm sorry, you whisper. She nods. And closes her eyes. You boil water. Pack herbs. Clean the wound as gently as you can. She dies that night. But not screaming. You bury her yourself. In the far edge of the graveyard, near the old wall. No marker. Just stones. When you return home, you find your apprentice waiting. A boy no older than you were when you first held the rag. He stares at you. Is it true? He asks. You say nothing. He asks again. Is it true it's spreading? The rot? You nod once. His face pales. Then hardens. What do we do? You meet his gaze. And for the first time, you say it aloud. We learn. He blinks. Learn what? How to stop it. You start with vinegar. Stronger mixtures. Then herbs, thyme, sage, crushed charcoal. You write down what works. What fails. Your notes fill scraps of parchment, pinned to the beams above your bed. The boy helps. Eager. Careful. You teach him how to tie the straps. How to boil the pliers. How to whisper lies gently so they sound like hope. The patients keep coming. And some of them live. You begin to believe. Not in miracles. In method. You start recognizing the early signs. You isolate the worst. You clean faster. You burn your gloves now, every day. You charge less. You sleep more. The smell still lingers, but fainter now. And in the mirror, your eyes look less hollow. Your mentor visits once. He stands in the doorway, arms crossed, watching as you wrap a boy's head after an extraction. He says nothing. But when he leaves, he nods once. Just once. That night, you light a single candle and stare at the shelf of teeth. You count them. You remember each one. And then, carefully, you add a new one, white, smooth, unbroken. The first you've ever pulled before the rot began. A small thing. But enough. Enough to keep going. To hope that pain isn't the only thing that waits in the dark. By now, you no longer see people. You see mouths. A farmer isn't a man in a coat, he's a half-rotted front tooth and a molar cracked from chewing grain. A merchant is a gold incisor jammed between swollen gums. A priest? A breath that stinks of incense and infection. You catch yourself cataloging them before you even hear their names. Every patient is a battlefield, and every extraction is a small war. But you've grown better. Faster. More efficient. You speak less. Let your tools talk. And though the screams still come, they don't haunt you like they used to. Until one day, a new scream rattles your bones. Not a patient's. Your own. It's a morning like any other. Cold. Quiet. A low fog crawling across the village roofs like a ghost late for vespers. You chew a bit of crust for breakfast, and there it is, pain. A sharp, searing bolt that runs from your jaw to your temple. Your knees buckle. You bite your lip. You know that feeling. You've heard it in 100 voices. A nerve, exposed and singing. You rush to your bench, light a candle, and stand before the shard of polished bronze you call a mirror. Pull your lip back. You see it. Back right molar. Black around the edges. Slight swelling in the gum. You press lightly. A drop of pus beads out like a tear. You curse aloud, then laugh, short, bitter, disbelieving. You, of all people. You know what comes next. The infection. The swelling. The fevers. The screams. You've drained abscesses larger than eggs. You've pulled teeth with roots twisted like tree branches. You've seen jaws rot from the inside. And now it's your turn. You could wait. Try the herbs. Rinse with wine. Pray. But you've never been one for prayers. You call your apprentice. He enters with his usual eagerness, but it drains from his face when he sees your expression. My tooth, you say. He nods, slowly. Then falters. I've never. I'll guide you, you say. Just do it clean. He swallows hard. You sit in the chair for the first time. The ropes hang nearby, but you wave them off. No bindings. If I scream, ignore it. If I move, keep going. He nods again, hands trembling. He lifts the pliers. And for the first time, you understand what they truly are, not tools. Weapons. He grips the tooth. Misses. Adjusts. Then begins to twist. The pain is not pain. It's fire. White hot. It steals your breath, blinds your vision, tears your thoughts apart. You scream. Once. Then bite it back. He twists again. Something cracks. You feel the root snap like a twig underfoot. Then silence. The pliers come away, bloody and shaking. He did it. You fall forward, gripping the edge of the bench, panting like a man who's just outrun death. He hands you the tooth. You hold it. It's whole. Blackened, yes, but whole. You nod, then faint. You wake with a bandage wrapped tightly around your jaw, the room dim, the candle low. Your apprentice sits nearby, face pale, eyes wet. I thought you died, he says. Not yet, you rasp. He smiles. You don't. Instead, you lift the tooth and place it in the jar with the others. And that's when you understand. These aren't trophies. They're memories. Every one of them. A story. A soul. A scream that passed through your hands. You stare at the jar. There are so many. Too many. You wonder, how many did you save? And how many just died slower? The next day, you return to work. But something's changed. You no longer rush. No longer joke with patients. No longer promise it won't hurt. You know better now. You watch their eyes more. See the fear that hides behind their forced smiles and muttered thanks. You speak softer. Hold their hands if they ask. Not out of pity. Out of respect. Because pain, you've learned, is a language. And you've become fluent. Some weeks later, a widow comes in. Old. Wrinkled. But sharp. She says she needs a front tooth removed. You ask why. She pulls down her lip. It's not black. Not cracked. Just loose. It's time, she says. I've held it longer than I should. You pause. Would you like to keep it? You ask after the pull. She shakes her head. No. That was my husband's tooth once. He lost it kissing me. You blink. She smiles. I borrowed it all these years. And for the first time in months, you laugh. Not out of relief. Out of joy. You place her tooth gently in the jar. Then close the lid. You're not just a tooth puller anymore. You're a keeper of stories. And though your own mouth has one less tooth, it holds far more wisdom. You've felt the pain. You've survived it. And now you carry it, not with fear, but with reverence. It begins as a faint whisper in the air, a sourness you mistake for stew gone off or the musty rot of damp wood. But then it follows you. Into the workroom, into the street, into your dreams. It's the smell of mouths. Of rot. Of pus and old meat. Of fermented misery curling up from the jaws of the living. And now that you've noticed it, you can't unsmell it. Every patient brings their own bouquet. A shepherd with breath like spoiled milk and copper. A noble woman perfumed to the heavens, but her mouth reeks of infected honey. A priest with the holy rot, so potent you wonder if even saints could endure it. The worst part? It clings. To your apron. To your hands. To your hair, even after washing with vinegar and herbs. You've started sleeping with your head wrapped in cloth. Not for warmth, but to keep the scent from sinking into your dreams. But there are other smells too. Fear, for instance. It's real. Tangible. Sharp as iron and sweat-soaked wool. It prickles your nose the moment a patient enters. Eyes wide. Jaw trembling. Knuckles clenched. They don't speak of fear, they exude it. You've learned to read it like scripture. Then there's blood. Fresh blood, warm and metallic, still full of life. Old blood, rusted and sticky, clinging to the floorboards and your boots. Infected blood, sour, oily, like something between rancid fat and despair. Some days, it's all you can taste. You barely notice your meals anymore. And the screams. Oh, the screams. You used to flinch. Now you catalog them. High-pitched shrieks from young men trying to sound brave. Low moans from older folk, their voices ragged from years of holding back tears. The choked gasps of those who refuse to cry, but cry anyway. They fill the workshop like hymns in a cathedral, not sung in joy, but in resignation. You try music once. A stringed lyre hung near your workbench. Something to drown the noise. But the strings gather dust. The screams are louder. So, you hum. Softly. Almost unconsciously. A lullaby your mother used to sing, or maybe one you imagined. You don't remember the words. Just the rhythm. Some patients ask you to keep humming. They say it helps. You don't know if it's true. But you keep doing it. Then comes a boy. 8, maybe 9. His face swollen on one side. A fever in his eyes. He doesn't cry when he sits down. You start your work, pliers in hand. He reaches out and grabs your wrist. Weakly. Do you smell it too? He whispers. You freeze. Because yes, you do. You pull the tooth. It comes easy. Too easy. The root is mush. He winces, then relaxes. It's gone, he says. The worm's gone. You don't correct him. He smiles with blood on his lip. It's not a child's smile. It's the smile of someone who's tasted suffering, and survived. After he leaves, the smell lingers. Sweet. Faint. Like death waving from the corner of the room. You sit for a long time that day. And for the first time in years, you light a candle not for light, but for prayer. You don't know who you're praying to. God. Saints. The bones beneath the floorboards. Maybe just to the teeth themselves. Because they remember everything. That evening, you clean your tools slower than usual. You scrape each one until it shines. You hold it to the candlelight and watch the glow curve along the metal. Then you boil water, not for show, not for drama, but for cleansing. You whisper to the tools as you clean them. Forgive me. You don't know who you're speaking to. But something in the room seems to listen. You consider retiring. Just for a week. Let your apprentice handle the screams. Let your bones rest. Let the smells fade. But you know you won't. Because the pain doesn't wait. It festers. Spreads. Becomes something darker. And when it does, they'll come for you. Not because they trust you. But because you're the only one left who understands what it means to bleed from the face and still want to live. Later that night, you visit the river. You strip your apron. Wash your hands until the skin wrinkles. Scrub under your nails until they sting. You dunk your head. Hold it under. When you rise, the stars spin. And still, beneath it all, the smell clings. You walk home, wet and cold. A child passes you and wrinkles his nose. Mama, he stinks. You don't respond. You never do. Because you know the truth. You carry more than stench. You carry memory. And memory, once it sets in the flesh, never truly washes out. By now, you've stopped seeing mouths as parts of people. They're not smiles or voices anymore. They're landscapes, no, battlefields, and you are the one sent in after the war. Every patient who walks through your door carries the same baggage. Not in their hands, but in their jaws. And every mouth tells a different story, whispered in rot and blood and broken enamel. The baker's wife, her teeth crumble like soft wood. Every time she opens her mouth, it's as if you're staring into a cave that once housed life and now only echoes death. You pull one molar and 4 more rattle loose, like bricks tumbling from a rotted wall. The butcher's apprentice, his front tooth wiggles when he breathes. You tell him to stop smiling. Not because you're cruel, but because his teeth are fleeing his face and every grin hastens the retreat. A blacksmith comes in with an abscess so large it pulses with every heartbeat. When you press gently, he doesn't scream, he sobs. You drain it, the yellow-red fluid pouring out like a popped blister. You pack it with vinegar-soaked linen, and he kisses your hand afterward. You try not to cry. You fail. There's one girl. 12, maybe. Thin, dirty, wearing a tunic too big for her shoulders. She doesn't speak. Just opens her mouth when you gesture. Inside? A massacre. Half her teeth are gone. The ones that remain are stubs, blackened, cracked, weeping pus. Her gums are purple at the edges. You ask her name. She doesn't answer. You ask if it hurts. She shrugs. You start the extractions. 1 tooth. 2. 3. A fragment that used to be a canine. No screaming. No tears. You ask why she waited so long. She whispers, "No one listens till I scream." You pause. Because she's not wrong. You wrap her jaw, offer her a bit of bread soaked in broth. She nods, bites gently, and you see something remarkable: relief. Not joy, not thanks, just relief, so deep it looks like sleep with open eyes. That night, you lie awake. Counting teeth. You don't count money anymore. What good are coins when your dreams are filled with the soft crunch of shattered molars? What use are chickens or eggs when every meal tastes faintly of old blood and sorrow? There's a bucket by your workbench. You've stopped emptying it daily. Not because you're lazy, but because the weight of it matters. It's your measure of suffering. Each tooth inside was once part of a scream. Now, they lie together, silent and hollow. A monument to your profession. Sometimes you wonder if anyone else keeps a collection like this. Then you meet a traveling physician, pale, reedy, with hands that tremble too often. He watches you work once, nodding slowly as you yank a molar and pack the wound. "You're good," he says. You don't respond. You ever think about how many mouths you've changed forever? You glance toward your bucket. He smiles. "I keep a list," he says. Names. Places. Sometimes what they said before the pain hit. You ask him why. "To remember," he says. You nod. Then offer him a drink. You sit in silence, two men tied by blood and nerves and the inability to forget. After he leaves, you don't sleep for 3 nights. Because now you're not just hearing screams. You're seeing faces. Every tooth in your bucket has a name. Every crack has a story. And your mind, once numb to it, has begun remembering in detail. One day, you find yourself staring at a patient's mouth and thinking, "I've seen this decay before." Not this person. This pattern. The black spot beneath the gum. The swelling around the root. The faint smell of rot behind the breath. You know how it ends. You try a new technique, a slower twist, a different grip. You hum a different tune. It helps. Not with the pain, but with the remembering. And maybe, just maybe, with the forgetting. Your apprentice starts asking questions. Why do you hum? Why do you keep the teeth? Why don't you ever laugh? You tell him, one day, you'll stop asking. He doesn't understand. Not yet. But he will. You've begun to see it in his eyes, that dull glaze after the 3rd extraction, the way he stares at his hands afterward as if they no longer belong to him. You don't warn him. You just hand him the pliers and say, "It's your turn." He hesitates. You remember your first. The farmer, the shaking hands, the blood. You don't smile. You watch. And when it's done, you say, "Good." He doesn't answer. He just stares into the bucket for a long time. And you let him. Because there are lessons no mentor can teach. Only the teeth can. And they whisper in silence. They always do. By now, the screams don't startle you. You barely register them. They echo off the walls like part of the building's foundation, as familiar as creaking beams or the drip of water from the eaves after rain. But every scream is different. Some are short, sharp, and panicked, like a rabbit caught in a trap. Others are long and guttural, dragged from the belly, the kind of sound that breaks open a person's past, not just their mouth. And some are silent. The worst ones. You had a patient once, a widow. Her husband had died in the fields, her children gone from fever. She came in alone, sat still, and opened her mouth wide. For extractions. No sound. Not even when you cracked a root deep in her jaw. Not even when the blood welled up and she clenched the arms of the chair. You cleaned the wound. Packed it. Still, nothing. Only when she stood did she speak. That hurt less than losing them, she said, and left. You didn't sleep that night. Because no matter how many teeth you pull, you're never ready for the pain that doesn't scream. You've learned to judge people by the shape of their mouth. Not the smile, but the tension. The twitch of the lips. The flicker in the jaw when fear crawls in. You can tell when they're about to faint. When they'll grab your wrist. When they'll beg. Sometimes they whisper apologies in advance. I'm sorry if I scream. Other times they swear. Loudly. Inventively. You've been called a monster. A butcher. A demon. Once, a bard sat in your chair and composed a curse mid-extraction. You kept the rhyme. It was decent. Most days, your work is routine. Grip, twist, pull, pack. A rhythm. But now and then, you get a tooth that refuses. You know the type. It's deep. Rooted like a tree in cursed soil. It resists every tug, every twist. And the more you pull, the more the patient thrashes, the more the room fills with sweat and blood and something like despair. One day, you meet a knight. Not a noble one, a lowly retainer with a blade too clean and a jaw too clenched. He's lost half his teeth in battle, he says. From swords, you ask. No, he replies. From grit. He won't sit. Stands by the fire, pointing at his molar. Get it out. You try to guide him to the chair. He refuses. So you stand. Reach into his mouth while he grips your wrist with fingers like iron. You pull. Nothing. You brace yourself. Pull harder. Still nothing. Then, with a grunt and a snap, it comes loose, flying from the pliers like a stone from a sling. It hits the wall. Bounces once. Lands near the hearth. The knight spits blood and nods. Thanks, he says, then walks out into the snow. You find the tooth later. It's cracked, blackened, sharp at one end. You keep it. That night, you realize something terrifying. Your hand hurts more than usual. Not the bones, but the skin. You unwrap it. See the bruise blooming along your knuckles, a gift from the knight's grip. You soak it in vinegar. Wrap it tight. Say a quiet prayer. But the next morning, it's worse. Swollen. Hot. You don't panic. You've seen worse. But still, you work slower that day. Favor the other hand. And you realize something else. Your apprentice is watching you closely. He sees the tremor. He hears the grunt when you lift the pliers. You catch him hesitating before handing you the next tool. You don't say anything. But you both know. A day is coming when your hands will fail. And someone else will have to take the screams. So you start teaching more. Not just the motions. The decisions. When to pull. When not to. How to lie convincingly. How to hum to mask a scream. How to hold a jaw just so. How to pretend you're not afraid. Because if you let the fear in, even once, it never leaves. You tell your apprentice, you don't need to be strong. He blinks. Confused. You clarify. You need to be steady. He nods. You say it again, slower. Strong breaks. Steady endures. He writes it down. Later, you find the phrase scratched into the bench, just above where he sharpens tools. Strong breaks. Steady endures. You trace the letters with your swollen finger and smile. Then get back to work. Because there are mouths waiting. And teeth don't care if your hands hurt. Only that you pull. There are days now when the pain doesn't fade. It clings to your joints like wet cloth. You wake with your fingers curled tight, your wrists stiff, and your shoulders burning like they've been carrying stones through your sleep. You don't speak of it. You just work slower. More deliberate. And hope no one notices. But your patients do. They notice the way you pause before lifting a tool. The way your breath catches when you lean over. The way your apprentice now steps in more often to tie bandages or steady a head. They don't comment. Not out loud. But you can feel their pity. And pity, to you, is worse than pain. You weren't meant to grow old in this line of work. Most don't. Infection, injury, madness, the trade usually takes its due long before your beard turns gray. But somehow, you've lasted. And in lasting, you've seen what others haven't. You've seen the long shadow of untreated rot. You've watched abscesses burrow into bones, jaws disintegrate, faces collapse. You've drained cheeks the size of apples and lanced necks so swollen the breath rattled like wind in a bellows. You've seen death come not in a roar, but in a whisper. A flicker of the eyes. A sigh. The blood pooling just wrong. And because you've seen it, you've changed. You used to joke during extractions. Call your tools by name. This one's mercy, you'd say. She's faster than regret. Now you work in silence. Focused. Efficient. There's no humor left in the pain. You've also grown cautious. You don't take every case. If the rot's too deep, or the fever too high, you turn them away gently. Tell them to pray. To rest. To hold rosemary against their gums and hope. You hate doing it. But you've learned that not all screams can be silenced by pliers. Sometimes, all you can offer is comfort. And even that feels like a lie. Then one morning, a woman arrives at your door, carrying a child. The boy's no older than 7, but his jaw is swollen, eyes glassy, breath shallow. The mother is shaking, not from fear, but from exhaustion. Please, she whispers. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. You look at the child. You know that look. Sepsis. Too far gone. You should send them away. You should shake your head, mumble your apologies, and close the door. But you don't. You take the child inside. Lay him on the bench. And whisper to your apprentice, boil everything. The boy doesn't cry. That's how you know he's close. You hold his jaw, press your fingers to the pulse in his neck. Weak. Unsteady. You know you can't save him. But you can try to give him peace. You mix wine with herbs. Wet a cloth. Dab it on his lips. You don't reach for the pliers. Instead, you press gently on the swollen cheek. The skin gives, soft as rotten fruit. You press harder. It bursts. The smell hits you like a fist, sweet, thick, sickly. Your apprentice gags. Turns away. You don't. You drain it. Clean it. Pack it with soaked moss and whisper prayers you don't believe anymore. The boy breathes easier. Not well. But easier. You sit with him until the sun sets. Then the breath stops. No gasp. No twitch. Just stillness. His mother doesn't scream. She just cradles him. Rocks gently. You stay with her. Hours pass. And when she finally stands, clutching the child to her chest, she looks at you and says, "Thank you." You nod. But inside, something breaks. That night, you don't sleep. You sit by the fire, staring at your hands. Not because they failed. But because they did all they could. And it still wasn't enough. You wonder how many more nights like this you'll endure. How many more quiet deaths you'll witness. How many more thank yous you'll collect for trying to stop the tide with bare fingers. And you realize something. You're not afraid of dying. You're afraid of stopping. Because once you stop, who will take your place? Who will pull the teeth? Who will bear the screams? Who will tell the frightened mother that yes, maybe, there's still time? You stare at your tools, laid out in their careful order. You've sharpened them so many times the handles are smooth from wear. Each one holds a memory. Each one a story. Each one a name you've tried to forget. You close your eyes. And in the silence, you hear them. Not screams. Whispers. Pull it. Please. Thank you. And then, in the smallest voice, I'm not afraid anymore. You open your eyes. And sharpen the blade. Because tomorrow, someone will knock. And you will answer. Not because you must. But because you still can. Your apprentice sharpens the tools now. Not because you asked, but because he's learned to see what you can no longer hide. The stiffness in your fingers. The way you wince when lifting the mallet. The tremor that wasn't there last winter. He doesn't say anything. He just watches. And does the things you no longer can, without being told. That, more than anything, frightens you. Not because he's too eager. Not because he might surpass you. But because it means you've become predictable. You are no longer the terrifying toothed man with fire in his eyes. You are the one who squints to thread a needle. The one who pauses to catch his breath between pulls. The one who moves like stone bending. Still, the work goes on. And so does the boy. He's no longer a child. Broad shoulders, steady hands, a quietness in his movements that speaks of focus, not fear. He doesn't joke. Not like you did. But he cares. That's rarer. You remember the first time you let him pull a tooth alone. It was a woman, older, bent like a hook from years in the fields. Her molar was black and cracked. She asked if you would do it. You said no. You said, he will. He blinked. Swallowed. Nodded. And then he did it. Quick. Clean. No screaming. Just one sharp tug and a breath that was half relief, half disbelief. You remember the look on his face afterward. Not pride. Not joy. But understanding. The same look you had once. That was the day you knew. He was ready. And yet, you're still here. Still working. Still pretending your grip is steady. Still pretending you don't flinch when the fire burns too bright, or the wind creeps through your bones. The village has changed. There's a new priest now, one who tries to bless your tools. You let him. Not because you believe, but because the people do. And belief is half the healing. There are fewer horses on the roads. More carts. More dogs than children, or so it seems. But the rot remains. It never leaves. There is always another mouth. Another moan. Another jaw clenched tight against the scream. And always, your door remains open. But lately, you catch yourself staring out the window more than at your tools. You listen to the creak of the chair. The drip of water from the roof beam. And you think of endings. Not death. You've made peace with that long ago. But the ending of you. Of the man who could once pull a tooth bare-handed and not flinch. Who could drain an abscess by candlelight and go to sleep like nothing happened. Who used to walk into taverns and silence the room with nothing but a look. You wonder who you are now. A teacher? A relic? A fading shadow with blood on his apron and too many ghosts in his pockets? Then one evening, after the last patient leaves, your apprentice turns to you and says, I can take tomorrow. Just that. Nothing more. But it hits you like a hammer to the chest. You nod. Of course, you say. You lie. You'll stay in bed, you say. Rest your hands. You don't sleep that night. Instead, you sit by the fire, sharpening a single blade. The old one. The one you used when you were still a boy. It's dull now. Pitted with age. But it still remembers. It remembers the first tooth you pulled. The first scream. The first thank you. You clean it. Wrap it in cloth. And the next morning, you place it on your apprentice's table. He sees it. Says nothing. Just gives you a look. Half gratitude. Half farewell. You step outside. The air smells of wet leaves and firewood. You walk, slowly, to the hill above the village. The same hill you once stood on when you were younger, dreaming of escape, of purpose, of something more than rot and pain. Now, you dream of silence. of peace, of hands that no longer ache. You sit, and you listen, to the birds, to the wind, to the distant hum of someone else lighting the fire in your workshop. And you smile. Not because it's over, but because it never truly ends. The screams will come. The pain will return. But so will the hands. New hands. Steady hands. Yours were never meant to last forever. Only long enough to teach the next pair what it means to bear the burden. What it means to be the one who makes the pain stop. You close your eyes. And for the first time in years, you rest. He begins just as you did. With a rag. A mop. A pail of bloody water sloshing at his feet as he wipes down the wooden bench you once crouched beside, muttering curses and prayers in equal measure. But now, you are the ghost in the corner. Watching. Listening. Not intervening. Just observing the rhythm of the new routine, his routine. He does things differently. He sharpens the blades before lighting the fire. Keeps his herbs in clay jars, labeled with charcoal scrawls that would have been useless to your illiterate hands. He folds his apron neatly. You never did. But the chair is the same. And the smell. That sharp mix of sweat, vinegar, iron, and fear. It clings to the walls no matter how many times the floor is scrubbed. You remember telling him once, the room never forgets the screams. He hadn't believed you. Now he does. The villagers begin to call him the younger one. At first out of habit, he was yours, after all. But then, slowly, the words shift. Just the Tooth Man. And for the first time in decades, that title doesn't belong to you. It stings, but only a little. You were never in this for the glory. Still, you watch. He's slower than you were, more cautious. He doesn't pull on the first twist, he waits. Measures. Whispers to the patient. Offers water before and after. You never had time for that. Or perhaps you never thought to. But they trust him. That's what matters. One day, a noblewoman arrives. Not in a carriage, those don't come this far, but on horseback, cloaked in crimson with gold thread at the hem. Her teeth, white and even, belie her desperation. It's her son. Fevered, jaw swollen like a rotting fruit. Infection snaking down his neck. You're summoned. Out of courtesy. Not necessity. You hobble down with your cane, stand in the doorway, watch your apprentice, no, not apprentice, not anymore, work. He speaks calmly. Instructs the mother to hold the boy's arms. He unwraps your old tools, the ones he cleaned himself. He works quickly, but gently. The boy doesn't scream. When the tooth comes free, it's a whole one. Not split. Not shattered. A clean extraction. He cleans the wound, packs it with boiled mint and crushed sage. You blink. Once. Twice. You realize he's better than you. And the strange thing is, you're proud. He doesn't notice your tears. The noblewoman offers coins, more than either of you have ever seen. He refuses. Tells her to donate them to the village shrine instead. That night, he brings you a bowl of stew. he doesn't mention the tooth. Or the coins. Or the look on your face. He just sits with you. In silence. And somehow, that says more. In the months that follow, you stop going to the workshop. Your legs ache. Your vision blurs. The morning air bites your lungs like a thief. You stay inside. Nap often. Sometimes dream of teeth, falling like snow from a jaw too large to belong to a man. He visits, brings herbs and soft bread, speaks of patience, of new techniques he's experimenting with, warming the pliers to ease the initial bite, steeping cloves longer for better numbing. You nod. Grunt. Smile. He asks if you'd like to come back, just to sit. Just to observe. You shake your head. You've got it, you rasp. He looks down, suddenly unsure. What if I don't? You reach for his hand, place your weathered fingers over his wrist. You already did. That night, you sleep soundly. And for the first time in years, no teeth haunt your dreams. By now, you no longer measure time by seasons or festivals. You measure it in teeth. Your bucket hasn't been emptied in weeks. It's not your job anymore. Still, you count. Listen. Wonder. But then, something changes. It starts with a twitch. Not in your hands, they gave up years ago, but in your jaw. A subtle ache that pulses under the molars you've managed to keep. At first, you ignore it. Dismiss it as ghosts, muscle memory, maybe guilt. You've seen pain manifest from thinner excuses. But the ache deepens. And one morning, it becomes more than that. It becomes itching. An unbearable, crawling sensation behind your gums, as if something lives beneath the flesh, gnawing, burrowing, searching. You chew herbs. You rinse with vinegar. You hum old prayers to saints you never believed in. Nothing helps. You press a cold cloth to your cheek. The relief is brief, and worse, makes you remember the feel of other people's jaws under your grip, the pop of sockets, the snap of enamel. You tell no one. Not the boy. Not the baker who still leaves bread by your door. Not even the widow who braids your hair once a week with the hands of a woman who's buried 3 husbands. Because you know. You know what this is. It's your turn. The irony, of course, is exquisite. You, who held mouths like confessionals, who pulled agony from skulls like weeds, are now host to the same rut you once cut from others. You know what it looks like. You've seen it 1,000 times. The swelling will come. The fever. The sweating nights. The trembling jaw that won't open fully by morning. And then, the smell. Oh, the smell. You brush with mint stems. You rinse with wine. You chew twigs until your gums bleed. Still, the itch persists. Still, the tooth throbs. Still, you wait. Until one night, you can't. You wake with your jaw locked and the taste of metal on your tongue. You reach for the fire. Light a candle. Stare at your reflection in the warped metal mirror above the hearth. The face is yours. But older. Grayer. Haunted. You tilt your chin. Part your lips. There it is. The tooth. Black at the root. swollen at the base. Your tongue brushes it and recoils. It's soft. A tooth should never be soft. You consider calling the boy. He'd come. You know he would. But you don't. Instead, you reach beneath the bed, past the rolled cloths and broken sandals. You pull out the old bundle. The leather wrap. Your tools. Yours. Not his. Rust clings to them like guilt. The handles smell like wine and age and memory. You find the pliers. Grip them. Breathe deep. You've done this 1,000 times. But never to yourself. You wedge a block between your teeth. Sit by the hearth. And press. The pain is immediate. Searing. A bolt of agony that shoots through your face and into your spine. Your grip falters. The pliers slip. Blood trickles. You wait. Breathe. Try again. Grip. Twist. Pull. You scream, but only once. You promised yourself. And when it's done, the tooth clinks into the bowl like every other you've ever claimed. It looks smaller than you imagined. More fragile. Human. You stare at it. Wonder how many prayers died behind that enamel. How many curses. How many lies. You don't clean the wound. You don't pack it with herbs. You let it bleed. Let it ache. Because this is yours. This is the price. You lie back. Breathe shallow. Stare at the rafters. And then you laugh. A deep, raw, cracked laugh that makes the candle gutter. Because of course, this is how it ends. Not in battle. Not in plague. But here, in a one-room cottage with a bucket of teeth and a jaw full of pain. Just as it began. The morning comes slow. Light leaks through the shutters in thin, untrustworthy slivers. Your jaw throbs, a steady, pulsing from behind the bandage you finally tied with trembling fingers. The pliers lie on the floor beside the hearth, slick with blood and something darker. You sit up slowly. Your head spins. But you're alive. And in this world, that's still considered a win. The boy, your apprentice, is already outside. You hear him chopping wood, humming tunelessly, the way you once did before the rot came. He doesn't know yet. You won't tell him. What good would it do? Let him think you're still untouchable. Still made of iron and vinegar and firelight. Let him carry the myth. You eat bread soaked in wine. It tastes like old regrets and copper. But it stays down. By midday, the pain dulls into something manageable, something familiar. You've treated worse in others. You've seen men stagger home with half a jaw missing and still find time to thank you. You remind yourself of that. You are not dying. Not yet. So you work. Because that's what you've always done. You sterilize the pliers in flame, not for hygiene, but for ritual. You lay out the tools. You sharpen the probe. You clean the basin. The chair in the corner creaks when you sit in it. Same chair. Different patient. Same ghost in the air. He arrives just after sunset. A farmer, wide-shouldered and red-eyed from nights without sleep. He clutches his face and speaks in broken whispers. You're the only one who can help. You nod. You don't say you pulled your own tooth less than 24 hours ago. You don't say your hands are still weak or that your dreams were filled with screaming. You simply nod. Because that's what they need. They need the lie. You wedge his jaw open. Tilt the lamp. His breath stinks of rot and barley mash. His molar is cracked clean down the middle, blackened at the root, with a pus-filled sac rising behind it like a bubble. You probe. He flinches. You reach for the pliers. And you stop. Your hand, your right hand, trembles. Just slightly. The kind of tremor that others might not see, but you do. You see everything now. You switch hands. Pull with your left. The tooth comes free on the first try, trailing blood and a faint hiss of infection. The farmer screams. You pack the wound. Wrap his jaw. He weeps, but thanks you. You charge him half the usual price. He stares at you, surprised. Why? Because I know what it feels like, you mutter, already turning away. You don't need his gratitude. You need silence. When he leaves, you collapse onto the floor. Not from exhaustion, at least, not entirely. From something else. You are decaying. Slowly. Piece by piece. And now you understand why so many patients cried after a successful pull. It wasn't just relief. It was survival. The most primitive, thankful kind. The knowledge that they lived through something brutal. That they could still eat, speak, sleep, perhaps even smile. You've become them. The healer is now wounded. The extractor, extracted. You sit by the hearth, pliers in your lap, and think of all the teeth. Hundreds. Maybe more. You try to remember your first. The boy with the broken incisor. Or was it the merchant with the abscess? It all blurs now. Only the screams remain. Those you remember. Clear as bells. They echo when the wind hits the shutters just right. They curl in your spine when you close your eyes. You wonder what people will say when you're gone. Nothing grand. You're no priest. No soldier. No martyr. They'll say, he made the pain stop. Maybe that's enough. You wipe the blood from your tools. The same motions you've done for years. But now, you notice the weight. Every forceps. Every probe. Every tooth still stuck in the cracks of the floorboards. This place is heavy. And you carry it. Not just in your bones, but in your breath, your dreams, your broken smile. You are no longer the man who merely pulls teeth. You are the man who knows what it means. The man who has felt it. And that changes everything. It begins with quiet. Not silence. That would be too clean. No, this quiet is dense. A stillness that creeps through the rafters and coils beneath the workbench like smoke. It smells faintly of ash, of clove-soaked rags and old sweat rubbed into leather straps. No more footsteps outside your door. No more patience. Not today. Not anymore. The village has changed around you. New children run through the mud where old ones once screamed into your hands. They don't know you. Not really. To them, you're a shape in the window. A man-shaped shadow who doesn't speak, but watches. Your apprentice is grown now. He's the one they whisper about. The one with the steady hands and steady jaw. The one who doesn't flinch. You taught him that. Not in words. Never in words. You showed him in blood, in grit, in what it means to keep going when the world around you rots. He still visits. Sometimes. Brings you bread. News. Smiles that never quite reach his eyes. You tell him less and less. You're not sure if it's forgetfulness or mercy. Either way, it feels easier. The tools are still here. Hung on their hooks, clean but worn. You don't touch them anymore. Your fingers don't close the way they used to. You tried once, just to feel the weight again, and it dropped from your hand like a curse. That was the last time. The bucket of teeth still sits beneath the bench. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. Different shapes, different shades, different stories. You could match each one to a face if you tried hard enough. But you don't. You can't. The memories blur now. Names fade. Only pain remains, hovering like candle smoke. The pain you took away. The pain you carried home. And the pain you never escaped. Some nights, you dream you're in the chair. The same one you once stood beside. You feel the probe in your jaw, the pliers tightening. You try to scream but there's no mouth left. You wake with blood on your tongue and no memory of why. Other nights, you dream of them. The ones who never got up again. The woman who bled too much. The boy with the abscess that spread too far. The man who clutched his chest and went still halfway through a procedure. They don't accuse you. That would be easier. They just look at you. Like you should have done something different. But there was never a better way. Only the way that hurt least. You rise slowly. Your joints grind like bad gears. The mirror shows someone you don't recognize. A face lined like dry earth, eyes too distant, mouth a soft ruin of sunken gaps and stubborn survivors. You haven't smiled in years. You don't remember why. Outside, the wind shifts. You hear it through the cracked window, moving through the village like a slow exhale. Somewhere, a child cries. Somewhere else, laughter answers. Life doesn't pause, even for the tooth man. Especially not for him. You sit by the fire. No flame. Just warmth remembered in stone. You close your eyes. And listen. Not for footsteps. Not for screams. For breath. Your own. Still here. Still yours. Once, a woman left a note behind after you pulled a tooth that had tormented her for weeks. You kept it for years, folded in your apron pocket. It said, simply, "You made the pain stop." You never showed it to anyone. It felt too fragile. Too personal. But now, in the dim quiet, you think of it often. You were never thanked in gold. No one sang your name. No scribe etched your deeds into parchment. But you made the pain stop. That has to be enough. It's twilight now. The sky burns orange and then goes purple, then black. One candle flickers in the corner. You sit with it, the last patient of your own long life. There is no procedure. No prayer. No scream. Just breath. And the long, slow exhale of a man who remembers everything and nothing all at once. You feel it before you see it. The weight lifting. The stillness wrapping you gently, like linen. And as the darkness settles in, you smile. Not because it's over. But because, for once, there is no pain. Only peace.